suppose you're more of a dog person.
Natla doesn't honor her contracts, Pierre. I'd move on if I were you.
No, mademoiselle. Natla and I understand each other. I find things for her, and she rewards me handsomely. But you seek the very thing she does. That is why you are not trusted.
I trust my instincts.
And that is why you are in second place. I am a professional, mademoiselle. I focus on the job, and I get paid.
There's more to life than money, Pierre.
This isn't life, mademoiselle. It's business. Your compulsion prevents you from seeing the difference.
It hasn't prevented me from getting a piece of the skill. How's business for you?
Touché. So then, why don't we see whose compulsion gets them the next piece?
So originally, old Pierre, you just fight him here. He just runs out and starts gunning you down, basically. But we wanted to, well, first of all, make a character that was a little bit more interesting than just to shoot first and ask questions later. But we also wanted to sort of keep one of the aspects of Pierre that made him really interesting in the first game, I really liked about him anyway, which is that pretty much you had to fight him about 3 or 4 times throughout the level, and you'd shoot him loads and loads of times, and then he'd just suddenly decide, that's it, I'm running away, and he'd just, as soon as he went out of line of sight, he'd just vaporise, basically.
Which was a little cheap.
Yeah, so when we came to doing the remake, I was going, that's great, look, I love the way that he just like goes behind a pillar and vanishes, and everyone's going, no, it's rubbish, it's ridiculous, where does he go? So we actually decided to play on that in the cutscene and have him sort of be sort of this ninja guy who could be anywhere behind any pillar, potentially, and basically work that into the cutscene. One of the interesting things about the sequence of Lara going to Natla's office was how she went up the elevator shaft, because when we were looking at the sequence, it seemed like it was going to be pretty boring in the original game. Her just breaking into an office and going up, rifling through Natla's drawers. So we came up with this idea of her using the counterweight to fly up the lift shaft, and it's kind of interesting because I remember that basically that actually got sort of, plagiarised. No, not plagiarised. What's the word? It was homaged in the Matrix movie, which was pretty cool, actually. And then in remaking the office section, we decided to use that space to actually build a little bit more information on Natla, because we don't really get to see a lot of Natla. So we came up with this idea of, instead of Lara originally just read some kind of diary, she gets to look through Natla's
Video logs,
exactly, and we get a little bit of backstory both on Larson and Pierre, and it was an interesting way to sort of get more character going on without Lara having to sort of interact with them or change the sequences too much.
St. Francis Foley is I would say probably the second most recognizable area from Tomb Raider 1. other than the T-Rex Valley. I think a lot of people really remember that sort of big vertical room and the climbing up the broken thing in the middle. So, I mean, we really wanted to sort of keep that feel when we redid it, and then just sort of make it more involved and sort of more challenging to the player this time. But essentially, it's pretty much unchanged. We even sort of went back and duplicated the textures from the original for like the floor panels in the middle, because they're sort of so recognizable.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting sort of goal with that area when we were, because it's quite common that game designers, even when they have a 3D vertical sort of space that they can play with, they tend to sort of end up just making long flat things anyway. So that particular area from the original game was just sort of, let's go as vertical as we possibly can and see what we can do with it. And it was great with Lara being so sort of easy to kill. It was such a frightening space to move through. And you know, as usual with Anniversary, everything is double the size now, so it's even more frightening looking. Damocles' room was basically, I mean, obviously his story is about having a sword sitting over his head. So the plan with the room was basically that you walk in and you see this like forest of swords hanging from the ceiling, and you think that's bad news. And then you pick your way through the room and actually nothing happens to you. But, you know, there's a prize at the end of the room and you just know what's going to happen when you take it. So it's kind of really building that expectation of when the swords come flying towards you like magic missiles.
That's right. We just sort of took that concept and ramped it up, and now we've got swords in the walls and swords in the floor. It's sword-tastic.
It dilutes a little bit the whole sword from the ceiling, though, which
Yeah.
is the legend. Neptune.
Neptune. Yeah. So originally the Neptune room was essentially just a hole in the floor with a little pool of water, wasn't it?
How dare you? No, like the goal with the Neptune area was to actually give people a sense of real claustrophobia underwater. So it was an extremely long shaft, and you get the moment you stepped into it, it sucked you all the way down to the bottom. And I wanted to get this feeling of like that terror of being, deep underwater and knowing that you can hardly swim back. So because the draw distance on the original Tomb Raider, basically it faded to black after not very far. The cool thing about the Neptune room was that you get sucked down this hole so far that you can't. It's black above you. You can't even see the surface anymore. And it was that horror of being pulled down to your doom that I was trying to get with the Neptune room. And then basically you have to just find a switch and turn off the current and swim up just in the nick of time. But what did you guys do? Looks pretty crazy.
Yeah. So we took that original area where you get sucked down, and then we built an entire new room off the side of that. So instead of just pulling the switch and swimming back up, now you pull the switch and you go into an entirely new room themed around Neptune and water. Though, you know what I just realized? We renamed this room.
What did you rename it to?
It's Poseidon.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, see, this goes back to originally Toby not knowing who the Greek and the Roman gods were.
Oh, well, it's not as bad a mistake as Thor, though, is it?
It's true. Yeah. So while the original room was Neptune, this is now the Poseidon room. So that it's the same god, just now it's appropriate to Greece.
Yeah.
So that works out fictionally better. But the room's still sort of all water-centric. And you just sort of swim around and do stuff and get the thing and then swim back up the hole.
Your doom.
Well, you still got to swim back up. If there's no doom, Toby doesn't like it.
No.
even a room in the first game. It was a hallway with a ball at the top.
We didn't even have time to actually build Atlas. The whole idea was that there'd be this statue with, obviously, the chap with the big rolling ball, which was one of the small number of actual generic tools we could use to make our puzzles, and have it sitting on his back and texture like the world. We just didn't have time to do any of that, so we just had the ball at the top of a ramp and left the rest of it to people's imaginations.
That's right. So now we've actually been able to build Atlas.
Woo!
Yeah, so that's good. And there he is, and he rolls the ball down a second. This wasn't even a room in the first game. It was a hallway with a ball at the top.
We didn't even have time to actually build Atlas. Whole idea was that there'd be this statue with, obviously, the chap with the big rolling ball, which was one of the small number of actual generic tools we could use to make our puzzles, and have it sitting on his back and textured like the world. We just didn't have time to do any of that, so we just had the ball at the top of a ramp. And left the rest of it to people's imaginations.
That's right. So now we've actually been able to build Atlas.
Woo!
Yeah, so that's good. And there he is, and he rolls the ball down, essentially. The theme is the same. We just sort of added the added difficulty of having a pit at the end. In the original, you just sort of hid behind a ledge and let the ball roll over you, didn't you?
No, that was the same. It was basically you had to drop down into the pit.
Yeah.
Let the ball roll over the top of you because it would fly over the top.
Yeah. So
you made it a bit more complicated.
It's a tad bit more complicated, but thematically identical. Except we actually have a statue.
Yes. in the original, the idea of the two sections of the room was, the first one was obviously just essentially sort of it was kind of really just basically a random death machine. So you had this this checkered pattern on the floor, and you're supposed to sort of be able to, I think, tell where the next lightning bolt was supposed to come and then try and avoid that area. But in reality, you just had to run across as fast as you possibly could in case you get fried.
This is quality design. Random death.
Random death machine. Do you realise how much time we had? Anyway, so after the random death machine, the concept of the next room actually was, I like the idea of having to put yourself like into the most dangerous position you possibly get, right?
Right.
Where
Under the hammer.
You have to physically stand under the hammer and then wait for it kind of like to crank back and then drop, and you have to just run off at the last second. And that was particularly evil in the first one because Lara moved so slowly. She took so long to react to anything. So it really made for the situation where you'd sort of stand on the pressure plate and then you kind of run off and go, oh, and it didn't trigger, and you go, oh, it's a little bit too much of a chicken that time, and you'd run back and go, woo, run off. Well, at least that's what I used to do anyway.